Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. We're talking about migration and hoping to have a live look in at some migration sites. For those of you that have stuck with us for the duration, this is the sixth session of a six-part series about migration and Raptor ID. And today's kind of a wrap-up session. Hopefully we'll have some Q&A. Hopefully we'll get a live peek in and call in to our two sites that are counting right now and maybe see some birds and talk to the crews about what they're seeing and doing. And then just talk about Raptor ID and field questions. And of course, it wouldn't be one of these sessions without a few more bird ID quizzes, so we'll do those too. Um, so there's a series that we did, and all of these sessions are available on our YouTube channel. And we're streaming this one live to YouTube. So if you're watching there, hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dave Oliar, Director of Long-Term Monitoring and Community Science at HawkWatch International. I'm joined by our research biologist, Jesse Watson. Hey, Jesse.
Hi, folks.
And today we have our field biologist, Jessica Taylor, joining us. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, everyone.
We brought Jessica in because she is a long-term veteran of migration research and migration monitoring, and think that she'll add some nice perspective to what we're talking about today. And we're looking right here at this picture is the view from the count site at Chelan Ridge in Washington State, right, Jessica? And this is kind of, you want to share a little bit about how you got started in the raptor world and watching migration and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Washington State University, go Cougs, and for one of my field techniques class, we took a visit up to Chelan Ridge, and yeah, that's where it all started for me. I fell in love. I emailed HawkWatch and said I have to work here, and ended up doing 7 full migration seasons.
And it was that 5 of those were at Chelan, right?
I did 3 at Chelan and with HawkWatch, and then 2 at Manzano Mountains in New Mexico.
Awesome. And then you jumped on as a field biologist with us for various projects and now are full-time field staff or field biologist, right?
Yeah. I just started as a field tech in the migration off season, doing golden eagle nest monitoring and eagle vehicle strike surveys, and just kind of stuck around long enough to fill the opening of field biologist that HawkWatch had.
Great. We're glad you're here, and that's like we love it when we can have that happen, and that's been the case for a number of people in different projects. So we're going to talk about ID and raptor migration. I'm still waiting to see our field crews join as panelists, so we're not jumping live just yet. But when we do jump live, we're going to go to Corpus Christi first. And so Corpus Christi, for those of you that might not have seen the first in this series where we kind of did a quick tour of all of our migration sites, Corpus Christi is down in the southern part of Texas on the coastal bend. We're looking at a blown up image of it right here. And this is one of those areas where we've got like the ocean and the bays and the water creating a leading line where birds are going along the coast, not wanting to go across water just yet. And so that concentrates birds. And then also as we go down towards the southern part of North America, the landmass tapers, right? So we start to get this concentration of birds, and sort of as that bottleneck effect happens along with the coast, we start to get really big numbers of birds, and we get species and individuals from both the eastern part of North America and also the western part of North America that come through here, right? And so we end up seeing immense numbers of birds. And I think, how many birds have they already seen today, Jesse?
I checked a few minutes ago. They had seen over 6,000 birds today, and counting. So birds are moving.
Birds are moving. Migration is on. We wanted to do this session sort of right now because we talk about, and I think we even put it in the text to plug this session, that it's the peak, right? Peak week or peak weeks, couple of weeks. What does peak migration mean to you, Jessica?
Peak migration is basically when you see the bulk of the birds. So usually the last, depending on which site you're at, and further north or further south, could be the end of September, beginning of October, and yeah, you just start seeing a lot more birds.
Means pretty busy days, right?
Yeah, you go from seeing, maybe, again, depending on which site you're at, 40, 50, 60 birds a day to hundreds, or, at Corpus, thousands.
Or tens of thousands
Tens of
in the
thousands,
case
yeah.
of this site that we're gonna join here pretty soon. Yeah, and so then a lot of those birds are some of the species that make up the bulk of what we see everywhere. So like the accipiters, the sharp-shinned hawks, and the Cooper's hawks. And then what's the the meat and potatoes of Corpus Christi, Jesse?
Broad-winged hawk. So
Broad-winged hawk.
yeah, if you're following along with the count at Corpus Christi, the kind of initially in the season or early in the season, there's a large flight of Mississippi kites. So those have pretty much all but concluded. There's still a few stragglers that are coming through. What do we see, Dave? Over 50,000?
Yeah, easily over 50,000, and they've had an 85,000 bird day not too long ago, last week.
Yeah, so starting off with huge numbers of Mississippi kites. We actually broke the season record at Corpus Christi this year, so really good flight. They've actually had a really good flight of Mississippi kites down in Veracruz as well, which is consistent with what we've seen. I believe they've seen over 300,000, but
yeah, I'm gonna mute myself and give a call to Corpus. I think we're having some technical issues, but I'm gonna see if I can get them on here real quick.
Sounds good.
So you want to keep chatting up migration, and I'll jump back in a second.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so huge numbers of Mississippi kites, and then as the season goes on, we start getting large flights of broad-winged hawks. And yeah, like Dave said, we've had a count of I think over 85,000 birds the other day, and I think we're over 500,000 total for the site this year. 500,000 total birds, so really good flight thus far, and we're kind of on the tail end of the peak flight, but there's still, now we start to see big numbers of Swainson's hawks coming through as well as turkey vultures. We usually get around 100,000 turkey vultures, or at least multiple thousands. So still big numbers to come at Corpus, and our other sites, Grand Canyon. We'll get to them in a bit, but they've been having good flights too during this peak.
Jesse, to put it in perspective, do you want to maybe touch a little bit on how those numbers at Corpus differ from some of the other HawkWatch sites?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. You probably can answer it well. Just like at the sites that you counted at, like what has been a big peak day compared to 85,000 birds in a day?
Well, at Chelan Ridge, I think the biggest day I ever saw in the 3 seasons I did there was 169 birds in one day, which was a very big deal at the time. And at Manzanos, I can't remember exactly, but it was around 500.
Nice. Yeah, so totally different scale, I guess, of birds. But again, it's a different part of the world. The reason that there's a large number of birds down in Corpus, of course, is like Dave described. The birds are coming from the east and west and the central flyway, moving along the coastline, and that specific species of bird, broad-winged hawk, moves in huge numbers, and we don't really see that too much in the west. Did you? Oh, go ahead, Dave. Did you say something? On those days that you had a big flight, Jessica, were there specific species that were driving that, or was it just pretty diverse?
Usually turkey vultures and Swainson's hawks, I would say.
Yeah, 50, 100 of each. Put your numbers up quickly.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we may have our technical difficulties worked out. I see Clay's joined us. I'm seeing some live footage there. Hopefully he can help us or hear us. And we'll turn it over to him in a second so that we can go to his screen, I think, is what we're going to try to do, and say hi to Clay Taylor down in Corpus Christi.
I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Are we good?
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Clay.
Cool. Hey, how are you? Sorry about that. I had the wrong link. God, technology. Can't live with it. Can't live without it.
We're good now.
Well, bienvenido to Texas. So we are at the Hazel Bazemore HawkWatch platform, constructed in 2008. Before that, all the hawk watchers would sit up on the hillside here, watching the birds coming in. Loose, disorganized hawk watches had been had since the 1970s, actually. In the mid 80s, they tried to do a little bit of structure for a couple of weeks at a time, things like that, trying different spots, east and west. But in 1997 was the first full year of scientifically run, backed by HawkWatch International, counting by Joel Simon, who was the initial HawkWatch counter. And in 2008, they built us this beautiful HawkWatch platform. This is the county of Nueces, which is the county that Corpus Christi is in. And so obviously in non-COVID years, we have, a lot of people up on the platform. But this is a midweek and it's hot and there's not a lot of birds. Well, there's birds, but there's not tons of stuff up there. So this is a sign that we did have printed up a few years ago using Great Texas Birding Classic grant money from the team that I ran. And obviously HawkWatch International was part of the production of doing this. So I probably already talked about it, but just to reiterate exactly where we are. So we have all the different hawk streams coming down, and Corpus Christi is right on the coastal bit.
I think you're getting a little choppy here, Clay. I'm wondering if we could maybe go up to the platform and see what the team is doing and talk about how we count there.
I don't know if we can hear you.
Yeah, we might be. This is the challenge of going live. Technology, even in the middle of a city, you got to rely on either the cellular connection or the Wi-Fi there, and neither are that great outside. So we're looking at the Atlantic Flyway. He's stuck up on there. Some of our Broadwings hawks come down from up that way. Clay, can you hear us?
Looks like his video cut out there.
Yep. All right. Hopefully we can get that back in and talk to them here in a minute. I know they're seeing some birds today, so hopefully we can see some silhouettes in the sky. I think one of the things that I heard you all talking about while I was trying to get us connected was just talking about the numbers difference in terms of like a big day at Chelan Ridge versus a big day where they count like, hundreds of thousands of birds at Corpus where we're visiting, and like those are two very different experiences, but they're both really cool and unique because you're in different settings, right? And to me, like the ridge tops, like in the Northwest or the ghost shoots or elsewhere, like you're up top and you're seeing birds come by, and you get perspectives that you don't necessarily get at Corpus Christi, where you get amazing numbers of birds. And so it's kind of a, which one you want to see each day, and they're both phenomenally amazing and fun to spend days doing. But you can see more biomass of broadwing hawks than you ever thought existed at Corpus in an hour or two, and you can get like a really unique perspective of a merlin that's flying below you, and you're looking down and seeing the top side of it at some of the other sites, and they're both really cool experiences, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a whole different world. like huge volumes versus ridgetop numbers coming through. Looks like Clay popped back on. Maybe he'll go live again.
Clay there, and from a monitoring scientific perspective, both locations are useful and tell us a story, regardless of that volume of the flight. If we're at the same place year after year after year, building this story about what happens with migration, whether it's 500,000 birds or almost 2,000 birds a year, looking for the changes and what's going on there are pretty important. Who do we got here? Is that Clay again?
Well, we can go through some of our slides of Corpus if we want.
Yeah, let's do that while we're waiting for them to jump back in.
Okay, let me share my screen. All right, so you already kind of described where the site is. Along the coastal bend in Hazel Baysmore Park. Over here, where all these birds get pushed off the water and are getting counted in large numbers. So here is the look from the platform. This is where Clay is trying to call in from. I think we showed video of this, or a picture of this before in our first talk, but we've got this nice platform looking kind of to the north, and these large numbers of birds are coming from all over in the sky, moving across. And so this site is open earlier than our other sites because we start earlier to pick up the kites that I mentioned. So we pick up Mississippi kites as well as swallowtail kites, and that's why we begin on August 1st. Most of our other sites begin mid-month in August or late in August. And the season is very long. We actually count to November 15th, which most sites wrap kind of towards the end of October or early November. Anything you want to add, Dave or Jessica? Dave, you're on mute there.
I think that the platform gets the counters up off the ground and away from the mosquitoes, which is nice, and visitors when in a normal year when this platform would be pretty packed right now because we're still in peak like we're talking about. We're working behind the scenes to try to reconnect with Corpus. If not, we'll move on and we'll talk about Grand Canyon here shortly. Looks like Clay might be back in with a better connection.
Just let me know if I need to shift to video for him.
Sure. Think if you advance once or twice, there he is.
Cool. Let me stop sharing here. We'll go back to Clay. Clay, looks like you're muted there, but we can see you. There you go.
You got me? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is weird. I was hearing you guys, seeing the slideshow, couldn't connect it, so I had to go back out, close everything down, turn everything back on. Anyway, we're back.
Thanks.
So let me flip this around. Let's see. Where's my tab to flip this thing around? Come on.
Do you still have them, Daniel?
I don't have. I have a steady stream of Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Counting.
This may have
I'm
been
not
your first from earlier.
seeing.
Okay.
Nuts.
I thought maybe I had white in the tail, but I can't say that for sure. But
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather not show you me. I'd rather show you the platform. But
came from overhead.
so there's Dane over there. Hang on a second. This is crazy.
It's gotta be a bald eagle's view.
Or something.
Where the heck?
The white that was.
Anybody got a clue as to where the little button is to reverse the camera? Not hearing you guys at all.
I'm
not sure where it would be on your screen, unfortunately.
Yeah. I had it before. Yeah. Let's see, me. Oh, here we go. Is this it?
We're still seeing you, Clay.
Yeah, I know. There should. That is weird because I had it before and I switched it, No, it doesn't want to do it. All right. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to turn the phone around and not be able to see exactly what I'm. This is dumb.
We'll tell you what. We'll tell you what we're seeing.
Hang on. No, that's not it.
We roll with the punches around here.
Yeah,
Oh Lord.
variable amount of white in the subadult twos.
Okay. So I'll spin you around.
Bald eagle.
So
Perfect.
we just had an immature subadult bald eagle go by a few minutes ago. Dane was putting it on. So the platform itself is 1,700 square feet, and we do have shade because when you're counting or trying to count Mississippi kites in the middle of August and it's 105 degrees, you need shade. So we do also have running water. We have electricity, and we have supposedly Wi-Fi, but it's just not cutting it right now. Workstation over here. There's the data recorder and all that. The tally list. So I don't know how well you can see the.
Yeah, we see it pretty good. That's great. Maybe zoom out just a little bit.
Okay, so running total to date this year, 560,000. Average over the 23 years is 590,000. So we should definitely go past the median this year. Set a brand new record on Mississippi kites, 53,000 birds, up from 35 or 36,000 was our previous high. Other things of note: 2 Aplomado falcons so far this year. Actually, 4 golden eagles, which is a crazy number, whereas the yearly average for 23 years was 2. We're wondering if there's Western fire smoke-driven birds that are getting the heck out of there and coming down here.
Sure.
Give you a quick look around. So this is looking due north off the point of the central part of the platform. And most of our birds are coming from the basically kind of northwest all the way around to east. And it depends on the line, depends on the driving winds and all that stuff. So
we can kind of see the crew, the counters, the observers up there are all trying to get on something right now. So maybe if you want to talk about how they scan, Dane's pointing out something.
Okay, well, Dane's.
It's pretty high up there.
We have a possible kettle to get.
It's in this cloud.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Oh, they're streaming now.
Oh, now they're streaming out. Okay.
But still, it's pretty thick.
How many birds you got up there, Dane?
I think it's Tucker's turn to do numbers. So, hang on a second. Let's see if we can get.
So one of our Q&As that have come through, and we can, this is perfect time for talking about when you have these big groups of birds coming through, is how you count the birds when there's so many of them.
Yep.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, as soon as a kettle is spotted or a stream is spotted, and there's a difference between the two of them, somebody becomes the counter. So in this case, it's going to be Tucker over there. When the birds are streaming, they're going in a long, thin line. When they kettle, they've hit a thermal, and they're gathering together and swirling together. So you don't count them in a kettle because the birds are just moving around too crazily and you can't see. As soon as they get up to the top of the kettle and start to stream off to the next location, then you can start doing the count. So at that point, he's watching the stream go through and clicking on his clicker, and away it goes until that kettle is exhausted. On the really big days, you can get multiple streams going from kettle to kettle to kettle. So sometimes one guy gets on a stream and it just stays there because it keeps getting replenished and they keep on going. So sometimes you can be literally counting the same stream for 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how many birds there are.
Right. And when those counters are clicking, they're not clicking single birds, right? They're clicking in bunches.
It could be 5s, 20s, or 50s, depending on 5, 10, 20, 50, depending on what they think is working the best for the size of that stream and the volume. Yeah. Yep. So now what usually happens is, so say in this case, Tucker's watching that stream there. If somebody else is up there scanning around, they're going to pick out things like, the odd sharp-shinned hawk, kestrel, merlin flying by, things like that. So that way he can concentrate on the numbers. Now Tucker just yelled out one Swainson's in the group, so that was cool. But a lot of times the other watchers that aren't doing the actual count are going to be looking for other things. We do look for dark morph broadwings. which we're up to 135 so far this year, 24 yesterday, including, and then also 4 dark Swainsons, which is very cool. We had a 7 Buteo species day yesterday, which is only the second time we've done that here at Hazel Bazemore with,
That's pretty good. Can you list those for us?
yeah, sure. Broadwing, red-shouldered, which is local, but these are all going to be the actual migrating birds. So broadwing, red-shouldered, red tail, Swainsons, Harris's hawk, whitetail hawk, and zone-tail hawk.
Nice.
We have seen at times in the past short-tail hawks. There have been 2 gray hawk records here. There has been 1 common black hawk record here. So, in theory, we could get a 10 Buteo day, but and not even forget ferruginous hawk, which is usually later. So, the nice thing about Hazel Bazemore and where we're located in the center of the country is the diversity of raptors can be very cool. And as we get farther and farther into October, we'll get many 14, 15, 16 species day of migrants. Our all-time record is 19. We haven't done a 20 species day yet of migrating birds, but hopefully this year. Hawk watchers are ever optimistic.
It could happen. It could be today. So we're seeing kind of in the background there, Clay, there's a bunch of clouds, and for like folks that maybe haven't done a lot of hawk watching, is that a good thing or a bad thing for the counters?
Oh, the clouds are definitely a good thing. We had the past few days, we've had just pure blue skies, and it's wickedly hard to spot the birds, especially when they're high up against that blue sky, because your eyes have trouble focusing on infinity. So no, absolutely having some kind of clouds to be able to see stuff is a huge blessing. We could use a little stronger wind right now. It's actually fairly calm, and always northerly components or westerly component winds are what pushes the birds down to the coast and gives us the concentrations. In recent years, we've had a lot of south and southeast and southwest winds, which has never been really good for concentrating the birds as much as we would like it to. This year, we've had actually some fairly decent cold fronts and some north winds that have helped get the number up. But there are days when we know that 50,000 birds went over here, but people counting out west just 10, 15 miles from us have 100,000 birds. So it's all very, very dependent on what's driving the hawks and bringing them down. So you want to do an interview with Dane?
Yeah, let's talk to Dane.
Talk to Dane. Let Dane take a swig.
All right, guys, I can give you a minute or two. We got birds everywhere here. Welcome to the Corpus Christi HawkWatch. I'll stand up so you can get a better background shot. Right out this way where I'm pointing, if you can make it out, that is directly north. Unfortunately, these birds haven't got the memo, so they don't all come directly overhead. We get them
we tried to schedule them for right now. I don't understand.
I know. It's just they're stubborn, and we get them way to the west as well. Today is one of those days where we're not getting huge numbers, but we're getting birds east, west, and overhead. So we've got a really good team this year, and we're catching a lot of the birds, and we got volunteers from all parts of the country. Small numbers this year because of COVID. A lot of our visitors did not make it. Not that they got COVID, but we're restricted on how many people we can have up here.
Right.
We're doing our best to do social distancing and keep everyone safe at the same time, trying to get all the hawks. As Clay mentioned, we set a record for the Mississippi kites, and that was huge. It was very entertaining, and they actually started out pretty slow, just like last year, but obviously made up for it in the latter half of August and the first part of September. So we have brilliant clouds today. I think you guys noticed that earlier when Clay was doing a panoramic type thing. And as Clay mentioned as well, the clouds help us tremendously.
Dane, what's the temperature and the wind like?
What's that?
What's the temperature and the wind like today?
It's right around 30 Celsius, and the wind is very mellow. Few kilometers. I did weather for Tucker while he was counting that group in the west, and where the average was 3 kilometers per hour and the gust was only 10. So, I mean, that's perfect. The thermals are rocking. The birds are rocking. We're rocking. Hazel rocks. Thank you, HawkWatch International, for allowing us to have this HawkWatch. We are absolutely grateful, excited, and thrilled to be here. Perfect conditions.
Thanks, Dane.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? What else you want to see? What else you want to know?
Oh, we can, let's fill a little time in case maybe we can get a look at some birds. But what else? Anyone got questions? I'm looking to see questions. We've answered the time and temperature. Someone wants to know how you know there aren't other species intermixed, but you kind of explained that while we were talking about having that Swainson's hawk in there with the stream. So that's good.
The one nice thing about having big kettles of broadwings is that the other species, when they're in there, stand out because it's easier, much easier than finding where's Waldo. So yeah, and it's just a matter of who's looking at it. So if the counter is clicking off by 20s or something like that, he's really not going to want to be looking at individual birds, but then somebody else can help pick out stuff. And a lot of times, especially with the kettles, the extra species might not be in the middle. They might be out on the edges, just kind of, tagging along, if you will. So here at the park itself is about 300 acres. The total bird list for the park is well over 350 species. It's a great place to go birding. Down below, we have a water drip and feeder areas that was paid for by Great Texas Birding Classic. We also have a photo blind that was also paid for by the Texas Birding Classic and partially by the County of Nueces, so people can line up down here and take pictures. Unlike up in the Northeast where I used to count and ban hawks, we have jays here, but we have green jays. We don't have any blue jays. Great-tailed grackles, green jays, white-winged doves, white-tipped doves, Inca doves. They're all coming into the feeders quite a bit. We do get warblers coming in. And of course, the hawks will come in and take shots at the feeders too. But primarily, this is a very high altitude migration stream coming through here. We get some birds really low, but this is not like Cape May or Lighthouse Point or places where the birds have to go up to go over fences. So this is an extreme distance spotting and counting type of place.
That's where knowing those silhouettes and those shapes really come into play, right? For sure.
Yes, absolutely. Dane has this uncanny ability to pick out short-tail hawks and zone-tail hawks from just crazy long distances. And everybody be going, yeah, really? And then when it comes over, it's, yep.
I wonder if Dane ever really leaves the platform, actually. But,
physically, yes. Spirit, no.
there's never not cool birds to look at down there, it sounds like.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, if we
Jessica, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was wondering what the elevation is there.
Well, sea level is right down below us here, so we're at probably about 30 feet, maybe 40. Yeah, the Nueces River actually would be tidal if it wasn't for a small dam about a half mile downstream that keeps the salt water from coming back up.
And what's the other sites in the HawkWatch network are ridgetop sites, and for the most part, and deal with every kind of weather imaginable. Anyone up there have memory of like the coldest day you've counted on the platform there?
Oh man.
This is Daniel, by the way.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
How's it going? I think the coldest cold front was maybe mid 50s, but the high humidity and that really strong wind, it really kind of chills your bones. And I know it sounds
we feel so bad for you.
Yeah. All the go shoot counters are playing their little tiny violins. Yeah.
Got the windbreakers and maybe not wear sandals, but that's about it.
Right. Sounds really tough.
But those 100 degree days, 15, 20 days in a row, that gets a little
Sure.
much times. And especially on those days, the birds are just incredibly sky high. So it is an exercise in patience and skill for sure.
Yep. Different kind of challenges at every place, but it takes lots of endurance and dedication. And thanks you guys for everything you're doing down there, and keep up the good work.
All right. Well,
I don't know if you got to tune out, but we might jump and try to talk to the Grand Canyon folks. If you're able to stay on, and if birds come through, or if you want to join back in, if birds come through and you're still there, let us know. We'd love to go live to that. But if not, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today, Clay.
okay, cool. I'm sorry I couldn't get this thing to switch.
Oh, you did great. It was good.
As soon as we go away, it'll probably want.
I appreciate the adaptability. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
All right.
Chris, out, and you all have fun and go watch Hawk somewhere.
Thanks.
Great.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Clay.
Right, bye-bye.
All right, we're going to switch back.
Should I go ahead and share the PowerPoint? We'll do the little video.
Yeah, let's jump to PowerPoint and do the video. And so, as you might imagine, much like Corpus being in a town, that might be our most connected site. The Grand Canyon crew are going to try to dial in, but they did record a video that we're going to show to give you a primer, and just in case the technology does not cooperate for us, right, Jesse?
Yeah, so we're going to fly back up to the Grand Canyon from Corpus, where we are counting. So the sound is not great on this, so I think Dave and I will just kind of talk over sound to introduce you to the crew. We've got 3 counters at Grand Canyon, and they're out there right now. This was recorded, I think, 2 days ago. This is what the view looks like on the precipice. So first we've got James Peterson. James is saying hello. And James has counted at Corpus Christi, actually, is where he started. He counted at Commissary Ridge for 2 seasons, and he's the crew lead now at Grand Canyon. I think he's excited to be at Grand Canyon. Go ahead, Dave.
This is Angelica Varela. She is in her 2nd season here at the Grand Canyon. So she started last year and she was on the crew. She's an Arizona native and is happy to be there.
And this is Andrew Mayborg. He has been on 2 other crews. He's been at, there's a bird that flew over in the top right.
Yep.
He's been at the Grand Canyon, at Chelan Ridge is where he started, and then he was at the Go Shoots. He's dressed for the occasion, obviously.
His best shirt and sweatpants.
So
maybe pause right there, or this works too. So the count is actually at Yaqui Point, which if you visit the Grand Canyon, you can take a shuttle and they let you off at Yaqui Point. And this is off a little bit from the fenced and sidewalked area of Yaqui Point, where we've been counting since 1997. And so the crew sits pretty much right here, staring out across the canyon, and catches birds that come up out of the canyon, but then also some that are just high and kind of crossing from the north side and coming overhead. A big component of what we do here, which is not a big component this year, is that the crew does regular outreach talks to visitors at the parking area on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays typically, and goes out and tells all the visitors of the Grand Canyon about hawk migration and HawkWatch International and what we're doing here, and people come out and look and get great looks at a lot of cool birds, including condors. I think if you advance once, Jesse, we should get a table that shows up. So yeah, started in 1997. This will be the 21st year. We had a couple years where we missed, so that's why if you do the math, it doesn't quite add up. 96,000 birds counted here in 11,000 hours, and we average roughly 4,800 birds a season, and they're getting close to that total. We're already over 4,000 birds counted at Grand Canyon this year right now. And I think if you go forward one more time, you go to the Grand Canyon to see all this cool stuff. If you click on one of those links, like the Dunkadoo link, Jesse, will it go?
it will, yeah.
Maybe let's take a look at that.
I think it will. If not, I can just get out of it.
Sure. Have you heard from James?
I think he's on the line. So can you see Dunkadoo right now?
I cannot.
I'm only showing the PowerPoint. Let me share this. Sorry. Yeah, I think they should be on the line. So we could bring them live right now. We could have these numbers up and say hello.
Yeah, sounds great.
So Nicole, if you could unmute them. So these are the numbers that you can look up live and see what's going on at the Grand Canyon. So Dave mentioned we've seen 4,411 birds, 21 species, pretty good numbers thus far.
So there's the species breakdown, and you can actually break that up based on different times. I thought I heard some wind.
James,
Hey,
can
Grand
you?
Canyon, are you there?
Hi, we're there. Welcome to Yaki Point.
Yeah, James, nice to hear from you. We just showed the video. You've probably been following along, but if you want to just have everyone say hello and tell us how it's going today, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Hello. It's been going slow, but it started off like this yesterday too. Today we have easterly winds, which isn't as good as yesterday where we had northwest winds, but we're still hoping for a big afternoon.
What was your count yesterday, James?
Our count yesterday was 215 birds, but we had 2 ferruginous ducks, 2 merlins, 3 merlins, and a broadwing hawk. So it was a good afternoon.
Great.
Hi, this is Angelica. Yeah, we're out here counting birds. I have seen a few birds out on the west horizon right now. Not as many as we have been getting yesterday, but hopefully it picks up.
Hi, folks. This is
There's still a lot of day left, right?
There is a lot of day left. We've been having slow mornings even on the good days, so there's still hope.
Is that you, Andrew? We can barely hear you.
Yeah, hi. This is Andrew.
Yeah, what are you seeing today? What have you guys counted?
It was when I got up here. We had 2 Sharpies and a red tail, but since listening to the call, we've had a couple of birds, accipiters, really low down in the canyon, flying kind of straight north to south, and we're just kind of waiting on them to circle up and get out of here.
Cool. Hey, what was that bird that flew over during you guys' video? Do you remember?
I was a harrier, I think.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, I knew it was.
At least like right around that time.
Cool. Well,
Hey, so while you're scanning for birds, we'll put you on the spot, Andrew and James. You've counted at a couple of different locations. Like, if you had to pick a day to do hawk watching, what's your favorite spot that you've counted at so far?
Well, we've had a couple of over 300 and over 400 bird days here, which is really exciting numbers-wise and good diversity. The only real difference here on a big bird day compared to the go shoots is how easy it is to find the birds and predict where they're coming and where they're going. It's a little more open here, and flight lines are a little less predictable, so it keeps you a little more on your toes. So it's maybe a little more challenging here when it gets busy. But I mean, even yesterday, having a couple hundred birds and 2 ferruginous hawks and a handful of merlins and prairie falcon, it's definitely recency bias, but that was a pretty good day for me.
Yeah, and the scenery isn't too bad there, even when there aren't any birds, right?
Right. And at the beginning of the year, I mean, we still have condors around, but for the first month or so, we had some resident zone tails that we'd see almost every day, and resident peregrine falcon pair that we see most days. So there's plenty to look at, even if the birds aren't migrating.
Do you see those condors like every day? How often do you see them?
It's been it's been probably like, 3 or 4 times a week. If you're here for a couple days, you'll probably see them. And we try and see the wing tags when we can. And we've seen a handful of different individuals. Sometimes flying really close to the counting spot here is really impressive to see their size so close. But I think they put some carcasses out when they did the release on the North Rim a little bit back, so most of them are up there now, so we haven't been seeing them as often the last 10 days or so, but they're still around.
Cool. Let's thanks, Andrew. Let's ask James the same question, since he's counted at a few sites, including Corpus, where we just visited. James, I don't know if you heard the question, but if you were, and there's no wrong answer, but if you had the option to count at any site that you've counted at, where would you choose and why?
Each site has its advantages and disadvantages.
And maybe remind us where you've counted again.
As I counted 1 year in Corpus, and then for the past 2 years, I've counted in Commissary, which is in Wyoming, and now I'm here at the Grand Canyon. I don't know, each site has its advantages and disadvantages. One cool thing about this site is you get condors, and even on slow days, you have a good view. I feel like this site, you get the least amount of clouds, so it's a lot of scanning. So this site's really cool. I do like Commissary Ridge also, but you really can't.
Like that cold weather.
Yes, but you really can't beat.
Cool. Well, Dave, do you have any other questions?
Sure. Angelica is the back-to-back Grand Canyon seasons. I guess maybe is there any difference between what you've experienced so far this season from the flight and compared to last year? And then I guess maybe the follow-up is how different is it not having so many visitors?
Well, yeah, it's definitely different not having visitors. We have a sign that one of the liaisons for the Grand Canyon, the HawkWatch, gave us to inform visitors that we're not allowing people come through, which is unfortunate because it's definitely fun to teach the public about the birds, and obviously everyone wants to know about the condors, so that's a huge talking point as well. From last year, this year, I mean, we're getting a significant amount more birds this year. Last year, we did have a fire that was going on the North Rim for a lot of the season, and it's interesting just to see if maybe that affected our numbers or not. And then obviously the fires currently going on in the West. It'll be interesting to see kind of in the next few years, I guess, what that data is going to look like, and kind of all compiled. But for the most part, I mean, the flight lines have been pretty the same. In the mornings, we get most of our birds pretty far on that west coast, tiny little dots where the majority of the time we're kind of leaning more on behavioral traits rather than anything else, just because they are so far. We can't really pick up too many colors unless the sun is in the right spot. In the afternoon, when the thermals really start picking up, we get a lot of birds coming out of the canyon. And so that's a pretty neat thing to look at, to be able to see a bird kind of from the looking down at it as opposed to looking up. So you get to see a lot of cool features that you wouldn't normally get to see at other sites. And then in the evening, they will kind of start popping out behind us. And of course, every day, is different. And so we do get mornings where we're getting a lot of birds coming out of the canyon, and a lot of maybe afternoons where they're popping up behind us. Normally that morning flight line stays pretty true. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. I love the canyon, obviously. I keep coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking time out. I know you guys are scanning while you're talking to us, so that's great. I don't know if you've seen any birds. I assume you would have. Someone would have mentioned it. Jesse or Jessica, anything for these guys before we let them get back to work?
No, I think I'm good. Jess, do you have any questions for them?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks guys. Hope you're having fun. We all wish that we were standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon watching birds instead of a computer screen. So have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks. We hope you get a lot of birds this afternoon. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. All right. Sounds good.
Cool.
See you guys.
All right. So that worked. At least we got a live call in with the Grand Canyon. So what's our next slide here, Jesse?
I think
we get close to wrapping up. We're approaching our time. I'll ask Jessica the same question. You've been a crew member at a number of sites, but you've also in your current role have helped us get everything going up. And so I think you've probably visited everywhere but what, Corpus and Bonnie Butte?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So where's your favorite place to count hawks?
Oh man, that's a rough one. I think, as James was saying, every site has its perks. Obviously starting at Chelan Ridge, I have like a little special place in my heart for Chelan Ridge, but I really enjoyed working at Manzano Mountains in New Mexico. I think that's probably my favorite. If I had to pick one, I think that would be it.
And why is it what you
Well, for one reason, the weather is like pretty mild comparatively. It does get cold. We had some really crazy storms a couple years ago, with like 2 inches thick of ice on everything, and that was pretty crazy. But for the most part, most of the season, it's not too hot in the beginning, like it might be at Corpus, and it's not too cold until maybe the last week or so. So that's great. And then, a lot of these sites have a really good community, and Manzanos is certainly no exception. They got a lot of great people down there. The food is great. They've got green chilies, which I know isn't related, but it's still a perk.
But relevant. Food is important.
Yeah, and then they have zone-tailed hawks, which are great. I hadn't seen one before going there, and yeah, that was pretty exciting.
Cool.
Nice. A good answer. You actually gave an answer because I think both Jesse and I usually say wherever
Yeah.
we're counting hawks. Wherever I saw the last migrating raptor is my favorite place to be.
I can't properly answer that question. It's unfair.
But I think we're going to get to the tail end and wrap up. I think maybe, the talking about the long-term monitoring network, but then also focusing on Raptor ID and tips and skills for IDing raptors in flight has been the focus of this series. And anyone that's interested in going back and seeing, we had a session on each of those groups to focus on. But maybe for those of us still on, Jesse and Jessica, like talk about maybe like what for you as a hawk watcher was the most challenging either group or species to ID when you first started, and maybe what remains the biggest challenge if it's changed at all?
I'll talk first. I think the stereotypical Cooper's hawk versus sharp-shinned hawk is challenging. I actually got out and did some hawk watching this past weekend, and the term calibrating came up, like when we saw a sharp-shinned hawk, and I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. Like my response to that comment was like, I'm always calibrating, continually calibrating to make sure I know what the difference is between a sharp-shinned hawk and a Cooper's hawk. I think that's just one of the most challenging IDs, but also I think the conditions can make any ID more challenging. If it's windy, of course, it's more difficult just to begin with. But then if that pushes the birds far away and that makes them all become distant specks, you may have a huge flight in a day where you count 300-400 birds, but they could all be far away. And so I think it's not always just a specific ID. It could just be that the conditions make things very tough for that given day of counting. So that'd be my answer. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I think starting off, the most challenging thing for me was in a lot of the guides and teaching materials out there, they just compare everything to a red tail. But when you don't know what a red-tailed really looks like, that could be a challenge. And
That's good.
yeah, also just not relying on one trait. Um, I usually tell people I'm training to kind of throw size and color out the window entirely and focus on shape and flight style. And but if you're looking for pointed wings for a falcon, and then like you said, Jesse, if it's a really windy day, you might have a sharp-shinned hawk that comes by with really pointed wings. And so just how important it was to take multiple ID points. And that was one of the good things about working at Chelan Ridge, being a slower site. You really got to spend a lot of time watching every bird.
Yep. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd echo it, and I think that's useful for everyone that struggles with that sharp-shinned hawk, Cooper's hawk call to realize is that it never really gets like it's always tough. Even if you do it for years and years and years, you're not going to be able to necessarily make that ID between those two every single time. And then and being okay with that is pretty important, I think. I mean, the more you do it, and I think what you said, Jess, is what we've tried to stress throughout this series is to use multiple lines of evidence to look for multiple cues, and at least when you don't have to rush your call and putting that detective story together, to watch the bird and see everything it shows you, because shape changes, behavior changes. The more you do this, the more you start to go through that checklist. Is what is the wind doing to the bird? Is it bouncing it around or not? Is it a heavy wind or not? And that'll help you make more of those calls, not only between sharp-shinned hawk and Cooper's hawk, but a lot of things. And just stressing that it takes time. And we hope, I hope that splitting these groups up into different sessions gives us more time to talk about all those nuances and things to look at. So I love doing it this way, and I don't think I ever want to do every species all together again if we can avoid it, because it's just so much information. But to be able to focus on that and build that story, and I think these tips are helpful. But you guys jump in when you can, or you have anything to add. But I think the best thing to do is have these tips, but go out and watch the birds. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get used to looking for those things, and nothing substitutes being outside watching hawks to learn hawks. So
Yeah, remember that you can go to hawkcount.org and you can find the nearest HawkWatch to where you're located. And maybe it's worth just doing that real fast,
sure.
just because I have it open here. And somebody asked, can you see, am I only sharing my PowerPoint?
I'm only seeing, no, there you go.
Let me share my screen. So someone asked, Dave, while I'm doing this, how they can become a volunteer HawkWatcher in 2021.
So we put out the call for crew members usually in early summer, late spring, so May, June. And so keep an eye for that. There'll be an email. If you go to hawkwatch.org, we usually post those positions, or just send us an email at migration@hawkwatch.org to get on our radar. And so then we interview and screen for crew members, and try to get people with experience with people with less experience, and build the strongest crews we can at our different sites based on where you're willing to travel. So if you're into like a full season, that's the way to go. If you're into like a partial season, or you're near one of the sites and just want to help out, a day or two a week, that's often helpful too, because that gives the crew that are there the whole season a chance to take days off once we know that those people are reliable and can help spot birds and ID birds. So that's useful if you want to get a taste of what it's like to do this, but not commit to 2.5 months on a ridgetop. That's a way to go about it. I don't know. What else do you guys have to add? Anything to that?
I was just going to say, we typically, amongst our 7-ish sites, it fluctuates a little bit sometimes. We typically have about 32 volunteer crew members. So you guys, everyone heard from and saw a few of those folks today. So there's lots of opportunity, and of course there's other HawkWatches outside of HawkWatch International, but if you're particularly interested in the ones that we manage, then we do have a pretty good number of crew members. So if you're passionate and working on your skills as a hawk watcher, and that you desire to become a hawk watcher, then definitely get in touch with us, and that might become a reality.
And so we showed you Dunkadoo a little while ago. That's our partner that runs the app that we log our counts, our digital data entry. And so you can look at Dunkadoo and see data coming in from sites that are operating. But then Dunkadoo pushes our data to Hawk Count, which is Jesse's got showing right here. You want to talk about Hawk Count, Jesse?
Yeah, so Hawk Count is kind of managed by HAMANA, the Hawk Migration Association of North America, and it is kind of a clearinghouse for raptor migration data throughout, not just North America. There's Central American countries that contribute as well, and it's a place where you can go, like we mentioned, and find the nearest HawkWatch to you, or you can just log in a given season. Now, of course, it's fall, to see what the live counts are. So we can see Corpus Christi has seen 6,700 or 6,037 birds, and there's 15 sites that are currently submitting their data. There's a lot more that come in at the end of the day because not everyone is live. These ones that are flashing are actually online right now as Corpus is. Grand Canyon, you'll notice, is not on here for today because they submit their data at the end of the day. You can see their data, 215 birds yesterday. So these are all the sites that are currently doing hawk watching throughout the whole region of North America and Central America. And again, if you log on here and you live in, say, throughout a state that has a hawk watch, Dave.
New Mexico.
New Mexico. You can click on here, and hopefully you know where New Mexico is. You can click on New Mexico, and this will tell you where and what the hawk watches are that exist in that state. Then you can, of course, click on them and get more information, learn about the timing. Is it a fall or a spring site? How many birds did they see last season? That kind of thing. So these are all our data from last year for the Manzanos HawkWatch. So check out Hawk Count if you haven't heard of it or seen it before.
That's a great place to find a spot. So I think maybe if anyone's got a closing remark you want to put in, we can do that. But otherwise, we should probably wrap up. We're at the end of our hour.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there to people who just want to visit for a few days or just volunteer, some hours of their time, that the crews are always very welcoming and very excited to get people who were excited about hawks. Most of us love to talk about nothing more than we do about, showing people what we know about raptors. So yeah, I encourage everybody to get out and visit.
Yeah, it's great. If you weren't able to make the first sessions that we made in this series, or you just want to watch them again because you enjoyed them so much, you can find them on our YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, search HawkWatch, should be easy to find our channel. And then if you go under playlists, there will be a migration virtual series, and maybe Nicole can share that link again in the chat if folks want to bookmark that. This one will go up there as well, and they should be there for the future. And I think that
awesome.
To the end is if there's any more remarks that we have, or if anybody else has any questions that they want to ask. Thanks for coming along with us. Any questions?
Cool. This has been a lot of fun. We'll do it again next year, and we'll make it even better. And then the plan is for some of the other program leads to do some other sessions on HawkWatch International research projects. So stay tuned for announcements on when some of those things will come out. I know that we'll probably do one on banding, because we've talked a lot about counting raptors, but we haven't talked a lot about our banding efforts at migration sites and elsewhere. And so we'll probably put something together for that if you're interested in learning about that. And if we do that, I imagine you'll see all three faces here talking about that sort of thing later, and that's always fun.
Yeah, and next season, fingers crossed that the world is a healthier place and we don't have coronavirus to worry about. But if we're running more of our sites, we'd probably do our best to try to have some live check-ins with those other sites as well. So we'll work on that and improve that, and that should be fun to give you a virtual tour of those sites. So yeah.
Cool. I think with that, we'll sign off. I'll stick on for a second and see if there's any questions that come through in the Q&A, but I don't see too many. So yeah, we hope we have all the sites back. Thanks, Patty. Cheers to Corpus Christi. They're still going. They're going to have an above average year. Same thing for Grand Canyon. Same thing for all the sites running across North America. Keep counting. Hope you see good birds. Stay safe. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.